I don't have a lot of favorite books, but this is kind of a favorite, Meditations of the Small Lake. I always liked it because it was so affordable for people. It used to sell for, I think it was $8, and what a steal. Now it's $15, but it's a little bigger, and Chick again has done a beautiful cover for this, and some great drawings in here. This is a third and very final printing for this book, and I'm almost out of this again. And I added a few things, so it's a revised and enlarged edition. I remember taking this manuscript with me out east, where I just returned from again, but this was 5 years ago, to visit my daughter, and working in her house. I'm not good working away from my place, but I wanted to close this book with a new, with an ending that I thought would be more appropriate, given the time that had passed since it was originally published. And I remember working on this out there and getting it a fairly good rough draft. And when I got home, and then putting it all together and being happy with, yeah, that's the way this book should end. I live on Europe Lake Road. I don't live on the water, but my road dead ends into that lake, and I walk that road many, many, many times. And I have in the last 40-some years. And I figured that was the proper ending for this book. And that's what I would do with this revised edition. So it's about 2 pages, 2 and a half, 3 pages long. I'm going to just scoot around. I don't want to wear you out. Down to the lake, the epilogue. He steps into another day much as any other day, looking for something to orient himself, readjust his presence, something to make the day new, different, something to retrieve out there, bring back to the table. Whatever it is that lies in wait comes alive inside his own musings, ultimately turns him back on the same path, anxious to begin again. He walks down the same road toward the same small lake as he has done for years, usually uncertain of the season, the mind busy shuffling images, thoughts, conversation, passages from books and poems, memories of other days walking the same road, the night before, yesterday morning, last week, years ago. His 2 small children pulling a wooden wagon filled with buckets of bright cherries picked from there across the road where once an orchard grew. Summers in a red rowboat drifting on the small lake, the bobber centered in ripples, the circles widening to infinity, to nothing but smooth water, fishing for bass and perch near the old boathouse, when the old boathouse and the dock were still there, till then the primitive spirit to all the lake touched along its shores, when the lake was mostly unknown, unmarked, hard to find and quiet, but for the wind singing over the water, inside the trees, when the lake took you by surprise in winter, snow blinded you, held your footprints on ice, encompassed you in the immensity of white merging into the horizon. Memories of small, ancient-like bonfires on a winter's night, townspeople gathering to skate. That time the snowy owl sat for days in the maple there on the way down to the lake. Times of pink prairie rose in bloom along the road in spring. Autumns of wild apples and northern lights. The winter, his old neighbor crawled through the parlor window. The snow drifted so heavily against the door. He walks in a diminishing darkness toward that moment. Night recedes behind him, and the slightest glimmer of first light begins spreading over the east, over the road, the woods, the small lake waiting ahead. He has come to love this moment, when the night withdraws the darkest mysteries, uncovering the landscape's bare truths, dirt roads, telephone lines, chimney smoke, a black dog watching him from a distance, white birch trees, an entanglement of branches, evergreens and fallen trees, the long, long history of stone fences. A day of no particular date, but a sense of winter in retreat, the earth turning over on its back, maple sap running, a wake-up feeling of cold upon his face, around his neck, down his shoulders, a comforting cold flipping his collar up, catching a slap of wind in the eye, loosening a trickle of cold warm tears upon the cheeks, a tickling sensation of gentle flakes of snow falling invisibly, though the old road appears newer, whiter. The black dog catching up with him, running ahead, stopping, turning to gaze at the man, running forward in a frenzy again. The joyousness of dumb animal life, constant curiosity and playfulness, plummeting toward whatever lies ahead, while the man lumbers in the animal's wake, waiting for the mind to empty, hands curled warmly inside black mittens, snowflakes tickling his face, the wind in play in the tips of the tall pines just ahead, swaying so slightly. He stops to watch the wind in the trees, the towering height of pines and hardwoods on both sides of the road leading down to the lake, the density and darkness of the woods beyond and within. Nowhere he cared to tread. He might never find his way back again. He comes to the small crest in the road that he knows so well, the hill where his children went sledding in winter, the hill from which he catches a first glimpse of the small lake, so easy to saunter down in his walk toward the water, more breathtaking to negotiate on his way back. His mind in every direction this morning, returning to that field of tall pine he passed moments ago, once an open farmland, stone-picked, then gone to weed, fox dens, milkweed, songbirds, mushrooms, wild asparagus. Years later, pine seedlings were planted by the county forester, hundreds of finger-length pines tucked in place, now row upon row, and down, up and down the empty field from the road to his old neighbor's house in the far distance. How long ago was that? He can't remember, and it doesn't matter. Long enough for those seedlings to reach the height of 30 feet or more. Nobody now cares about the open field turned to thick pine, the stone fence that ran forever down the property line, and why the old neighbor lived so far in from the road you could barely see light in his windows at night. The sweet strawberries that he grew and gave away, the flower garden of huge poppies, orange and pink, that he tended in memory of his wife, the birdhouses he made from hollow cedar logs raised on poles high in the air that he nailed to the sides of the barn, and how he died one night in his rocking chair a long time ago, looking out the front window, facing the first snowfall upon the new pine seedlings. It's still early, still almost dark, but growing lighter, the closer he moves down to the lake. Another gray on white day. Nobody's about, no one on the road, nobody on the lake, no light in the few farmhouses he could see, hardly anyone living here this time of the year. Remembering those early years, he found himself alone among distant neighbors. He longs to get back to that, a time that occasionally visits him on days like this, early morning, winter, the land the way it used to be. He approaches the small lake, the opening at the end of the road, an expanse harboring drifts of snow, wind-swept clearings of pure ice, not a sound but his own breathing. He takes a tentative first step out into it all, breaking through the snow crust, punching in footsteps, heading toward the center, the first small clearing, an island of ice. He hears the wind coming up from behind him, sees morning light, a lighter shade of gray, reaching up into the trees across the white lake, a Chinese white, watercolor, a Payne's gray on white, an artist might spread in a wet wash to catch it, hold it, cold, warm, all coming alive in a moment of absolute, solemn, moving light. If he shuts out everything inside, if he concentrates on only the stillness, he can hear the sound of snow falling, his blood coursing. He is inside a snow globe, turned upside down under the ice. Fish frozen in place circle the darkness in wonder of water. Above, snow filters down upon the solitary man, alive in a glass ball, vanished upon a small lake, the center of white, where the only road leads. He looks to the heavens, feels the gentlest flakes, blesses his forehead, nose, eyes, opens his mouth, childlike in communion, tasting the sacred quiet. He stays that way a long time, standing on ice, snow coming to an end, lighter, warmer, isolation, loneliness, love, just being there. The walk back would come soon enough, turning, retracing his path. The walk back would be the same. The clutter would reassert itself. Thoughts invade his steps. Hands on his watch tell time. Somewhere in the distance, a truck would start up, a door slam, a dog bark, his own heavy breath speak to him as he trudged up the hill. The light would be behind him now. There would be sun. He would be walking into his own shadow.
That's it. Thank you.